Burk is about to exchange something almost worthless for something he actually needs. He hands Jax a small piece of paper, and Jax gives him a freshly cooked fish. Think about how strange that is, because Burk can't actually do anything useful with the paper. He can't eat it, drink it, build with it, or use it to keep himself warm. Yet somehow, that little piece of paper can convince Jax to surrender his dinner. And today, we've made the whole thing even stranger by getting rid of the paper. We tap a phone, invisible numbers change somewhere, and real goods suddenly become ours. So how did humans create something this powerful when money once didn't even exist? To find the answer, let's send Burk back thousands of years and take away his money. One evening, Burk smells a freshly cooked fish and immediately decides he wants it for dinner. Unfortunately for Burk, Jax caught the fish, and Jax isn't planning to give it away. Burk offers him a basket of berries, but Jax already has more berries than he needs. Burk tries some dried meat instead, but Jax has plenty of that as well. Finally, Jax points toward a stone axe and shows Burk exactly what he really wants. There's only one problem with that deal, because Burk doesn't own a stone axe. So Burk finds an axe maker and tries to exchange his berries for a new axe. Unfortunately, the axe maker doesn't want berries either, because what he really needs is animal hide. Burk wanted one simple fish, but now he has to trade with half the village. This sounds like the perfect explanation for money, but there's something wrong with this familiar story. Early human communities didn't necessarily conduct everyday life by constantly swapping one object for another. People lived among relatives and neighbors, where relationships could matter more than immediate payment. Jax might simply give Burk the fish today, and expect Burk to help him another day. Nothing changes hands in return, but both men understand that Burk now owes Jax something. That simple promise allows an exchange to happen without coins, notes, or even direct barter. Long before modern money, societies could use obligations and forms of credit to organize exchange. So one of the ideas behind money may be much older than the objects we call money. But this system becomes harder when Burk starts dealing with people he has never met before. Trusting your neighbor is one thing, but trusting a complete stranger is something very different. Now imagine Burk's tiny settlement growing until hundreds of people are living and trading around him. Farmers bring grain, hunters bring meat, potters bring containers, and traders arrive from distant settlements. Burk can no longer personally know everyone who wants to exchange something with him. A stranger has no reason to trust Burk's promise that he will repay him next month. Even worse, keeping track of hundreds of different debts can quickly become incredibly complicated. Humans needed ways to measure value that could work between people who barely knew each other. They needed something recognizable that could carry value from one transaction into the next. And across human history, different societies found some wonderfully strange solutions to that problem. Some used things you might expect, while others used things you'd never imagine carrying in a wallet. Because before money looked like money, almost anything valuable had a chance of doing the job. Grain could represent value because people needed food, and large quantities could be measured and stored. Livestock was valuable too, because animals provided food, labor, hides, and even more animals. Cowrie shells became important forms of money and wealth across parts of Africa and Asia. Different communities found different answers because there was never one universal object called money. But Burk quickly discovers that some valuable things are absolutely terrible things to carry around. Grain becomes heavy, food can spoil, and a cow may simply decide to walk away. Momo might happily carry Burk's possessions, but most humans didn't have a baby mammoth available. A useful form of money should survive time, travel easily, and divide into smaller amounts. It also needs enough acceptance that Burk can receive it today and spend it tomorrow. Eventually, one particular kind of material proved remarkably good at meeting many of those requirements. Metals such as copper, silver, and gold offered advantages that grain and wandering livestock simply couldn't match. Metal doesn't rot like food, and a lump of silver won't suddenly escape into the forest. Metal can also be divided, melted, transported and measured to represent different amounts of value. Burk can now carry considerable value, without dragging sacks of grain behind him everywhere he goes. But the moment metal solves one problem, it quietly creates an entirely new one. When Burk hands Jax a lump of silver, how does Jax know what it's actually worth? Jax may need to check its weight, examine its quality, and make sure it isn't fake. Imagine repeating that process every single time Burk wants bread, meat, clothing, or anything else. Trading becomes easier if someone trusted can guarantee the metal before Burk ever reaches the marketplace. And that brings our story to one of the most recognizable objects in the history of money. Around the 7th century BCE, some of the earliest famous coins appeared in the kingdom of Lydia. Lydia occupied part of what is now Western Turkey and sat among important ancient trading networks. Early Lydian coins were made from electrum, a naturally occurring mixture of gold and silver. Official markings helped communicate that these pieces met standards recognized by the issuing authority. Suddenly, Burk doesn't have to treat every piece of metal like a completely new mystery. A recognizable coin can communicate information about value before Burk and Jax even begin negotiating. Coinage developed and spread, with different societies producing coins from different metals and in different values. Animals, symbols, gods, rulers, and other images began appearing on these tiny pieces of metal. But the picture stamped onto a coin wasn't the most revolutionary thing happening here. Humans were becoming comfortable accepting an object because of the value that everyone believed it represented. Now take another look at the little coin Burk is holding in his hand. Burk can't eat the coin, and Jax can't drink it when he's desperately thirsty. Momo can't use it as shelter, and one tiny coin won't keep anyone warm at night. Yet a farmer may give Burk food for it, and a merchant may give him clothing. Why surrender something immediately useful for an object that may have little immediate use by itself? The answer is that the merchant expects somebody else to accept that money from him later. Money depends not only on materials, but also on shared expectations, institutions, rules, and trust. Once that idea became powerful enough, humans could make money even less like the things it purchased. Coins are wonderfully portable until Burk becomes wealthy enough to need an enormous pile of them. Suddenly, Burk's convenient metal money is so heavy that he can barely carry his own wealth. In China, paper instruments eventually offered new ways to represent value without moving mountains of metal. During the Song dynasty, government-issued paper money became an important chapter in monetary history. To Burk, the idea would seem ridiculous because someone is offering paper instead of precious metal. But the usefulness of that paper doesn't come from what the paper itself can physically do. Its power comes from the system behind it and the willingness of other people to accept it. Money was becoming increasingly separated from the physical material people actually carried in their hands. Over time, banking systems developed increasingly sophisticated ways to record, store, lend, and transfer money. Burk no longer needs to carry every piece of his wealth everywhere he goes. Instead, institutions can keep records showing how much money belongs to Burk and how much he owes. Checks, payment cards, electronic banking, and online payments push this transformation even further. Eventually, Burk walks into a modern shop carrying no grain, shells, metal coins, or paper notes. Burk taps his phone, numbers change inside financial systems, and the shopkeeper gives him something real. To the Burk who once chased an axe just to get a fish, this would look like pure magic. Thousands of years after our story began, Burk finally stands in front of Jax and wants another fish. This time, Burk doesn't need berries, animal hides, grain, silver coins, or even paper. Burk simply taps his phone, and Jax hands over the same real thing Burk wanted all along. The objects changed, but the deeper breakthrough was learning how to represent value beyond the object itself. Money's greatest power may be surprisingly simple. It works because we trust that others will accept it.